Hey guys, in this video we are revisiting the PCI SATA controller from Silicon Image. I found in the past that they are a little bit hit and miss. You have to muck around with different BIOS versions and drivers. But I found out recently, in combination with the Windows 98 Quick Install project, these work really well. Here we've got the card up close and personal. We can see there is a BIOS chip. So not only are we going to get better performance, we're also replacing the motherboard BIOS. So it has support for large capacity hard drives. There's a little header here. We can see it for the hard drive activity LED. And the version we have has two SATA ports at the back. It is the Silicon Image 3112. It also came with a little driver CD. These are always a surprise package with lots of other drivers as well. I have uploaded all the resources onto my website to make it easier for you guys. Here we have the test system that we're using today. I will compare a few different options. Firstly, with a mechanical hard drive from Seagate. It's a 40 gigabyte drive. And then we're going to investigate the performance using a SATA to ID adapter with a modern SSD. And then finally, checking out the PCI SATA controller. Here we go. We're using a OEM motherboard. This is a TJ Florida out of an eMachines computer with a Celeron 533, 128 megabytes of RAM. And here I've connected onto a single ID cable the ID hard drive and also an ID optical drive. The hard drive is configured to master, the optical drive configured to slave. All in all, this motherboard has been working really well in all sorts of projects. It's got integrated ATI Radeon graphics, ISA slots, which is wonderful, PS2, ID floppy, so all the legacy features, it's all there. A closer look at the hard drive. It is from Seagate, the Barracuda 7200.7 with 40 gigabytes of capacity. And we can see here there's a little diagram for the jumpers. So I've configured it to master, but there's also a capacity limiting jumper which lowers the capacity to 32 gigabytes in case your BIOS can't support large hard drives. Here we go. I'm almost done. I'm just connecting a little button for the power switch. And here we are. It's firing up. Let's open the drive tray and in goes the Windows 98 Quick Install DVD. Here the hard drive is being detected. We can see the model number and also the version. It's supporting Ultra DMA Mode 2. Windows 98 Quick Install makes the process of partitioning and installing Windows really easy. I've been using it in a few projects. Here it's formatting the partition and then it's gonna copy all the operating system files onto the hard drive. Here we have some benchmark results. I'm using Roadkill's disk speed version 2.0 and, well, it's an old mechanical hard drive, so the expectations have to be realistic. We're getting up to around 10 megabytes per second. Out with the mechanical hard drive and let's go into the future using a modern SSD. There are quite a few options. I really like using the ID to SATA adapters from StarTech. These are quite unique. They've got a little chip from Marvell and they seem to be working better than those generic ones you can buy online. It uses a little Berg connector for the power, so I'm using an adapter that converts from the larger Molex plug to Berg and then plugging in the ID connector. I'm noticing some of the pins are bent. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention while using this adapter, but here we go. Everything is connected, so it's really straightforward. And then we're just plugging in the SSD. I'm using a very special SSD from SanDisk with a capacity of 30 gigabytes to be compatible. Here we go. Machine is up and running. This video is brought to you by PCBWay, our long-term channel sponsor. It is your one-stop shop for printed circuit boards manufacturing, assembly, 3D printing and CNC machining. To order a PCB, click on the Instant Quote button upload your Gerber file, check the preview of the board, and then customize the PCB specifications. Check the link in the video description for more information. The SSD is showing up fine. Here we can see the 32 gigabytes of capacity, PO mode 4 and Ultra DMA mode 2. Very important that you go into Device Manager and enable DMA mode for the storage controller. And here we go, we're getting much better results, up to around 30 megabytes per second, which is exactly what we're expecting from the chipset on this motherboard. The motherboard comes with the Intel 440LX chipset and has the P2X4 South Bridge. Here we have some specifications, and there should be some information about the performance. We can see it here. Supports Ultra DMA 33 up to 33 megabytes per second. So this is pretty much the result we're seeing. And now we're installing the PCI SATA controller. SATA cable into the back of the storage controller and then into a Western Digital Blue 500. So this is a larger drive. Provisioning is the name, I believe, where you're going to use a smaller partition and leave the rest blank. Also, this one has higher performance. We will just create a 32 gigabyte partition using Windows 98 Quick Install. Here we can see something interesting. The motherboard BIOS, it's this segment here, only detects the optical disk drive. And then the BIOS of the Silicon Image RAID controller takes over. We have BIOS version 4.2.47. That's the one it came with, which is important. Later I'm trying out a few different BIOS versions and I'm having some difficulties. So let's take a mental note of that. And we can see here the Western Digital Blue 500 gigabyte drive being detected just fine. If you do want to create a RAID array, press Ctrl S or F4 to configure your RAID array. With Windows 98 Quick Install, I'm just creating a 32 gigabyte partition to avoid any issues within Windows. Here we are in Device Manager. The disk drive shows up. We can see even information such as the firmware revision and of course the model number. Under hard disk controller, well, we are missing our storage adapter. It shows up under SCSI controller. Here we go. Silicon Image SiI 3112 SATA RAID controller, and we have some information here about version numbers and resources. Here we have the benchmark results. This is looking much better. The highest reading I'm getting here with 91.55 megabytes a second. So at the high range, we're seeing a tripling of the performance, which is excellent. And with Windows 98 Quick Install, all the drivers, all the patches, everything is already included. I didn't have to do any manual mucking around. I tried connecting a SATA optical disk drive, but it wouldn't show up under Windows, unfortunately. Which is odd because the BIOS of the storage controller does detect the disk drive just fine. And here we are in the RAID configuration utility. Again, we can see the two drives being listed here, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't want to show up in Windows. I couldn't remember the exact details about the BIOS version and drivers, so I found some really good information on Reddit by this user here, and he uploaded the IDE base BIOS version as well as a specific driver onto archive.org. I asked him if I could put a backup onto my website, and he said, yeah, sure enough. So here we go. If you do decide to pick up one of these controllers, at least you will have all the resources available. Many years ago, I downloaded all the drivers from the Silicon Image website for the 3112 and 3114 controllers. And then here we've got the backup of the resource that Massimo 335 put on the archive.org website. And also I took an image of the driver disk that came with my card. Let's have a look what files do we find on that driver disk. It's here in the D drive, just labeled SATA, and we can see there are resources for all sorts of controllers. So these driver disks are always a treasure trove for drivers, for other products as well. Here I'm having a go at upgrading to BIOS to version 5500. This is the base IDE BIOS, which is the one that's recommended and should work with a vanilla installation of Windows 98. It's fairly straightforward to go through the prompts, but I was surprised that doesn't seem to be an option to back up the existing BIOS from the PCI controller, only to write a new one onto the card. Unfortunately for me, this BIOS version didn't work out with this motherboard. It just hangs at this spot. I tried a few different boot options in the BIOS, but it really didn't change the outcome. So in the end, I found the exact BIOS version that the card came with in one of those downloads on my website, and I flashed that onto the card, and then everything was working fine again. So guys, that was me revisiting the Silicon Image SATA PCI controller. In the past, hit and miss, but in combination with Windows 98 Quick Install, give it another go. Windows 98 Quick Install doesn't just have the drivers for the RAID BIOS for this controller, but also patches for SATA controllers and large hard drive capacities. And this controller is well resourced. You will find a lot of information online, lots of drivers and BIOS versions, so this is always nice to have. And if your particular BIOS version doesn't work, well, try a different one, ID or RAID mode, try a different driver version. You might have some success like shown in this video. And that's it from me. Hopefully you found it interesting. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you soon with another one.